You think you know this story. The whale, the storm, the man who ran. But the Sunday school version left out the most disturbing detail of all. Jonah didn't run because he was afraid of dying in Nineveh. He ran because he was terrified they might be forgiven. He was a prophet of God, so full of hatred for his enemies that he would rather die than watch them receive grace. This is the real story of Jonah, and it is going to make you deeply uncomfortable. Because by the end, you're going to see yourself in it. In the next 11 minutes, 3 things are going to happen. 1, you're going to learn what Nineveh actually was. Not bad people. Historical horror that still shocks archaeologists. 2, you're going to find out the real reason Jonah ran. It has nothing to do with fear. 3, you're going to hear the final question of this book, a question that has no answer, and it's going to sit with you for days. Stay with me. This gets dark before it gets profound. To understand why Jonah ran, you have to understand who he was running from. Nineveh, capital of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, the global superpower of its age. And these people were not simply wicked. They were architects of terror on a scale the ancient world had never seen. Their own palace carvings, the ones you can still walk past in museums today. Their kings brag about their methods. Political enemies flayed alive. Their skin hung on the city walls as warning. Mass impalement. Forests of bodies left outside cities so no one would dare resist. They forced rebels to grind the bones of their own ancestors into dust. Historians have a name for their strategy: calculated frightfulness. They didn't just conquer nations, they psychologically broke them, made a spectacle of their suffering. Other nations, sworn enemies of each other, actually formed coalitions just to see the Assyrians fall. That is how despised they were. And these are the people God taps Jonah on the shoulder and says, "Go, warn them, give them a chance to be saved." Imagine being a Jewish prophet in 760 BC. These are the people who have humiliated your nation, carved their victory over your people on their palace walls like a trophy. And God says, "Go, save them." So what does Jonah do? He walks to a port, books a one-way ticket to Tarshish, the farthest known city in the opposite direction. And here is what nobody tells you in Sunday school. He admits it himself, later, in his own words, why he ran. Not because he feared death, not because the mission was too hard. He ran because he knew God would show mercy, and he could not stomach it. He is running from God's goodness, as if it's a disease. A prophet of God, running from his God's mercy. God hurls a monster storm at Jonah's ship, the kind that makes seasoned sailors scream. The boat is cracking. Cargo is flying overboard. Every man is praying to every god he knows. Every man. Except one. Jonah is asleep in the hull. The captain, a pagan, has to go down and shake God's own prophet awake and scream, "How can you sleep? Get up and pray to your God!" The unbelievers are more spiritually alert than the man of God. Let that sink in. They cast lots, a form of divination, to find the guilty man. The lot falls on Jonah. He confesses, and then says something that sounds noble but is actually deeply selfish. "Throw me overboard." This isn't heroism. This is suicide by sailor. He would rather die than go to Nineveh. The pagan sailors, men who barely know his God, refuse at first. They row hard, trying to make sure. They exhaust every option before they throw him in. The moment he hits the water, instant calm. And those sailors are so overwhelmed, they make vows to Jonah's God, right there on the deck. The disobedient prophet accidentally converted his entire crew. And as Jonah sinks into the dark, God sends a great fish to swallow him whole, not as punishment, as rescue. 3 days in the belly of a creature, alone, in the dark, with nothing but his thoughts. He prays, beautiful words, grateful for being saved from drowning. But notice what's missing from that prayer. No apology, no mention of Nineveh, no, I was wrong. He's grateful to be alive, but his heart hasn't changed. And yet, God commands the fish, and it spits Jonah onto dry land. Second chance, no lecture, just 2 words. Go again. Jonah goes to Nineveh, walks into this massive city, and delivers what may be the worst sermon in the history of religion. In the original Hebrew, 5 words. 40 days. Nineveh. Overthrown. No call to repentance, no explanation, no offer of mercy. He practically mumbles it. He's going through the motions, probably still secretly hoping God changes his mind and burns the city anyway. And then, the most brutal city on earth repents. Immediately. Completely. From the lowest street worker to the palace. The king himself steps off his throne, takes off his royal robes, sits in the dirt, in sackcloth and ashes, and issues a royal decree that every person and every animal must fast and cry out to God. 120,000 people, the world's worst missionary, the greatest revival in the entire Old Testament. God sees the repentance is real, and he relents. The city is spared. You'd expect a victory lap. Mission accomplished. City saved. Prophet goes home a legend. Instead, the text says something that should stop you cold. God's mercy was a great evil to Jonah. He is furious. He screams at God. This is exactly what I said would happen. I knew you were gracious and compassionate. I knew you'd do this. He's throwing God's own character back in his face, like it's an accusation, like mercy is the crime. And then he says 4 words that should disturb every person watching this. Just kill me now. He would rather be dead than live in a world where his enemies receive grace. God doesn't thunder back. No earthquake, no fire from heaven. Just one quiet, devastating question. Is it right for you to be angry? Jonah doesn't answer. He just storms out, builds a tiny shelter in the desert, and waits, still holding on to a sliver of hope that God might obliterate the city after all. God causes a plant to shoot up overnight right over Jonah's shelter. Perfect shade, instant comfort. And for the first and only time in the entire book, Jonah is happy. Not the sailor's conversion, not the greatest revival in history. A plant. The next morning, God sends a tiny worm. One worm. It chews through the stem. The plant dies. Then a scorching east wind. Blistering sun. Jonah is faint and miserable, and he wishes he were dead. Again, God asks one more time, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" And Jonah, to God's face, snaps back, "Yes, angry enough to die." And then, God speaks the last words of the book. "You are concerned about this plant, which you did nothing to grow. Should I not be concerned for 120,000 people who don't know their right hand from their left? You cared more about your personal comfort, a plant that lived one night, than 120,000 human lives. And that is where the book ends. No resolution, no redemption arc, no Jonah learned his lesson. Just the question, unanswered, hanging in the air. Here's why this book has survived 2,500 years. The question was never really meant for Jonah. It's meant for you. We all have a Nineveh, a person, a group. Someone we've quietly decided has gone too far. Crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. And if you're being brutally honest, have you ever felt a quiet irritation when someone who didn't deserve grace received it anyway. The story of Jonah is a mirror. It forces you to ask, do I love God's mercy? Or do I only love it when it saves people like me? The question is still hanging in the air right now. Will you answer it differently than Jonah did? If this story sat with you, if that final question is still echoing, hit the like button. It tells me this kind of content matters to you, and it helps more people find it. Subscribe for more deep dives that go beyond the Sunday school version. No easy answers, just the real, uncomfortable, brilliant story that's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. I'll see you in the next one.